Gemma, I came to this exhibit not knowing what to expect. Yes?
Since you're not liked, could y'all project?
Yes. Like Gemma, I came to this exhibit not really knowing what I was going to find, and decided, I walked in and I knew that we were going to be asked to talk about hysteria, and I thought, well, I don't want to do some kind of didactic response to hysteria or about hysteria, and what I did was I stayed in the space for quite a while. There were almost nobody else here, which was very nice for me, and I let these pieces work on me. And my response is really a result of these pieces working on me. The psychoanalyst Thomas Ogden has written, "I believe we do well in psychoanalysis to allow words and ideas a certain slippage. The artist, too, I would suggest, proceeds in a similar way in the act of creating. Encountering Hysterionics in the Forgotten Arm, I found myself powerfully affected on multiple levels. What I have tried to convey in my response tonight is the experience of that slippage as it worked on me and in me. What I offer is my own analytically informed response to the artist's provocation, a response that attempts to represent and enact something about hysteria as a state of mind. It does not presume to explain or interpret either the artist's mind or the art itself. Rather, it follows the slippage that the art affects in me. In what follows, there are two words I use whose psychoanalytic meaning perhaps needs a short translation. The other is used in psychoanalysis to refer to he, she, who is other than me, to he, she, as he, she exists in my mind, and the unconscious itself, which is understood as that part of the subject which is other to him, herself. The second word, the thing, refers to psychic content that produces an effect on the subject, but which does not yet exist in representational form. As such, it is amorphous and unknowable, even though its effects are felt. There may be other words and other phrases you hear that you don't immediately know the meaning of, but I hope if you slide with me, you will take in what I'm saying. The hysteric stages a scene, a communication that at once reveals and conceals, the wish disguised, the trauma sealed over, a compromise formation in the form of a symptom, a message received from an other place and addressed to an other, the necessary audience. Entering the gallery space, the viewer unexpectedly finds herself a participant in the scene. Looking, the spectator, now voyeur, is inside the performance, caught up in a transference of a something as yet unrepresentable, a thing which excites. We are in a scene of seduction, receivers of a message that cannot be translated without remainder, the unconscious, the unmetabolizable thing. The hysteric insists on a not knowing and a not remembering. In this sense, we could say that hysteria stages an absence. Something has happened to the hysterical subject, which as yet has either failed to achieve representational form or, subject to repression, has been stripped of representability. Something once known has been forgotten, a forgotten arm. As spectator voyeur in the gallery space, we circle around an empty ring, an absence broken only by a pair of boxing gloves, a trace of another scene, forgotten. There has been a fight that happened long ago, as the Victorian trappings tell us, a long ago that suggests the infantile origins of the trauma. Is this the primal scene that some consider the kernel of hysteria? the scene upon which the child stumbles only to be confronted with the full spectacle of his parents' sexuality, a passion he cannot yet comprehend, but that excites, a scene from which he is excluded except as spectator, a scene interpreted by the child as a violent struggle, a scene that seduces. There is a trace, the gloves left behind, a screen memory. There has been a fight, violent and exciting, forgotten. Incestuous wishes refused representation and thus fated to remain unconscious, all so long ago, yet suddenly present, here, now, the artifacts, the bloody faces on the wall, a kind of remembering. Around this absent thing, we find the symptomatic remembering forged under the incessant pressure of the return of the repressed. We are in the space of dreams. Like the hysteric, like the dream, the exhibit teases, revealing and concealing. The woman in white is not what you think, whatever you think. Man, woman, bride, vampire, werewolf, virgin, monstrosity. Identity is destabilized and multiple. In Haymaker, a face peers out at us from behind a wall that glitters. It's that little one right there. Who's there? A provocation. An insistent questioning that refuses containment in identity. Identity. Something that is identical to itself. No leftover, no remainder. Who's there? Something from elsewhere, a face peering out from a broken wall, the thing seeking representation and pushing its way towards consciousness. Something forgotten, missing. Let's call it an arm. Lacing. Quote, pushing with or using the bottom side of an open glove where the laces are to rub the face of an opponent. Lacing can cut the face, penetrate, a gash, an opening, a bloody mouth vagina, the anxiety of genital injury which the hysteric defends against by turning victim, the done to, into aggressor. The frame is broken, something is no longer contained, and suddenly we, the spectator voyeur, become ourselves the object of the gaze. Who is looking at whom? Who is the subject of spectacle? The mouth vagina, the penetrating eyes looking at us, demand our look. The primal scene translated to a scene of oral aggression, a swerve away from Oedipal sexuality to fantasies of cannibalism, the greedy devouring of the breast, that then leaves the subject prey to paranoid anxieties. In that state, ego boundaries loosen and blur. Who's there? Is she, he, a figment of my projection, the carrier of my repressed fantasies? Do I, as desiring subject, provoke the symptom in the hysteric? Or am I the paranoid projection of the hysteric who stares out at me? Who is the hysteric? Who's there now has a double addressee. Who is the other that looks out at me? Who is the other that looks out from me? The spectator voyeur meets herself as stranger to herself in the mirror of the hysteric. The symptom is transferred. Another dream, rope-a-dope. A place where a fighter can shell up, supported by the ropes, until ready to emerge and, quote, nail his exhausted opponent. Strong black geometrical lines, a form that can be the container for unnameable anxieties, binding them in representational form, in fantasy, a fantasy that the hysteric can then perform for an other, knowing it will be received by an other, if only the analyst. In the fantasy, the opponent is nailed, phallically penetrated. The fight itself, symptom and fantasy, binds the hysteric's anxiety by creating both a script and an opponent. Who do I fight? Penetrate? Why, it's you. I know it. I can feel you in your fleshiness. You will substitute for he, she, whom I need to not remember, the original exciting object, the originary seducer. However imaginary the hysteric's fantasy, it contains. The alternative is to be outside the ropes in infinite non-representational space, a space of nameless dread. From inside the ropes, the fantasy can be enacted. From inside the ropes, the fantasy creates its audience, the omnipresent spectator. In the dream scene, this spectator is the excited other, watching the primal scene into which the hysteric has inserted him, herself, as both male and female, the only beloved of father, the only beloved of mother. The spectator, as outsider, assumes the role of the excluded child, excited, seduced, the receiver of the message which resists final translation. And so something escapes the binding, and the form fails. The space of representation becomes the scene for the return yet again of the repressed. The black velvet bows, soft and feminine in this place of violence, almost uncanny, which Freud understood as the intimation of repressed material pressing towards consciousness. The ropes, which at first appear only to hold two fighters in a space of containment, call attention as well to that which is kept out, the alien invader against which we build our border fences. And so the dreams go, each one an attempt to represent in symptom form that which incessantly returns. The leftover, the untranslatable drives the hysteric from symptomatic performance to symptomatic performance. Implicated in the hysterical symptom, we are denied the comfortable role of spectator, cast as voyeur, ourselves the subject of desire. For it seems as we go deeper and deeper into these dreams that provoke and incite us, we encounter ourselves as the hysteric. If we can bear to look, subjects of our own unconscious, we will see that the hysteric in us has something to say. And look we do at barn burners, over and over again, each image a repeat and a difference. Something is hidden, something revealed, something just out of sight beyond the bend in the road. We too may not be who we think we are. Who's there?